So there's a lot of concern right now about our current immigration policy, and more specifically, how it affects our workforce and our labor cost. And look, don't even get me started about labor cost. All right, we're gonna have to table that one for another episode. And I warn you, when I get started on it, I'm probably gonna piss a lot of you all off. But again, that's a whole nother conversation. You know, I think one of the big things right now that people are concerned about is how we're gonna replace the hard workers that we're deporting with American workers. When, let's face it, most Americans do not have the manual labor work ethic to replace the people that we're deporting. And so when I have conversations about this with people, you know, I always tell them, I'm like, look, long term, I think robots are taking those jobs, maybe even in the short term. And when I say that, people often frown on me, and they're often, you know, they get upset because they feel like humans should be taking those jobs and not robots, which I find ironic because many of the people that I say this to, I know aren't going to take those jobs. Hell, I'm probably not. I'm not going to take those jobs. And I know many of y'all watching this aren't going to do those jobs. All right. And that's just me being, you know, intellectually honest about the whole thing. All right. I'm not going to sit there and say that I'm some hardcore manual labor worker when I'm not. All right. Those people that do manual labor jobs, they are just bred different. All right. They're just a different breed of human. And if we're serious about replacing those jobs with American humans, then we need to breed a whole nother culture of Americans. Because let's face it, you are not going to take modern day Americans and force them into that type of work. No, you have to completely recalibrate the mindset. And I actually have an idea to do just that. In fact, I actually presented this concept in one of my poli-sci classes in college back probably 20 plus years ago or more. And it's funny because back then, the whole political spectrum was completely flipped on this issue. Because see, back then, the Republicans were more for open borders and the Democrats were more for secure borders. It's funny how things work out like that, isn't it? But that's a whole nother conversation too. Anyhow, my idea was this. This is what I presented. We put GPA requirements on the type of job that a high school kid can get. All right, the same way we require athletes to carry a certain GPA, we put requirements on what type of jobs somebody can get. So for instance, if you have below a 2.0, you can't go out and get a job at a Best Buy or work in the water slide at the amusement park or waiting tables. No, if you get below a 2.0, guess what? You got to go toss watermelons or dig ditches and do the jobs that our fathers used to do. All right? And I know that sounds crazy, and it might just be, but I actually think it will work. And not only do I think it will help recreate a new, stronger workforce, I also think that it will improve our education, because it's gonna require and it's gonna force our kids to have a real conversation with themselves. Do they want to use their brain to make a living, or do they want to use their body? And some people are probably going to be fine with using their body to make a living. All right. But there's going to be a lot of kids that are going to be like, I'm just not built like that. All right. I better start paying attention in school, and I better start working on getting good grades, because I'm not going to be able to go do that kind of work. All right. So I think twofold here. I think this idea helps recreate and build a new workforce of American workers. And I also think it will improve our education system because of the motivation that it will give our students. Now, I know that might sound crazy to some, but it's just an idea. All right. You know, if you don't like it, I don't really give a shit. Y'all come up with something. All right. That's all I got to say. Salute.